told you that you could, like, biologically force your nervous system out of a total panic state just by matching your ears to a very deliberate 70 beat per minute audio track?
I mean, honestly, it sounds like some kind of modern, clinical biofeedback technique.
Right.
But what we are actually looking at today is how that exact biological mechanism is being used to build an invisible, portable sanctuary out of thin air.
Which is crazy, right? Because we usually picture sanctuaries as these massive physical structures, like heavy oak doors, thick stone walls.
Right, yeah.
Maybe some stained glass filtering the light. And if there's a storm outside, you step in, shut the heavy door, and the chaos just stops.
You can literally physically touch the safety in that scenario.
Exactly. But if the storm isn't the weather like, if it's just the crushing weight of modern life, the endless emails, the brutal news cycle, the anxieties that just kind of follow you everywhere. I mean, you can't always just retreat to a stone building.
You really can't. And that is the ultimate challenge of psychological and spiritual design. How do you create an environment of total safety that a person can just, carry around in their pocket?
Right. And that is exactly what we are exploring today. So, welcome to the deep dive. We have an incredibly unique set of sources in front of us today. It's a detailed script brief and track analysis from the musical channel at SPW Worship.
Yeah, and we are looking at their specific releases that are tailored for the month of June.
Right, June. And our mission today is to explore how this channel takes an ancient, mystical Catholic devotion and translates it into a literal auditory cathedral.
Using very specific tempos, frequencies, and soundscapes.
Exactly. Guiding you from total exhaustion to ultimate security. It's wild.
It really is a profound crossover between 17th century theology, behavioral psychology, and highly modern audio engineering.
I find it so interesting that this is all centered around the month of June, because if you look at the secular world, June is just, it's the start of summer.
Right. Barbecues, vacations.
Yeah, school letting out. But for millions of people around the globe, June is traditionally dedicated to a massive spiritual observance. The devotion to the Sacred Heart of Jesus.
Oh, for sure. It's a huge deal.
So for them, this isn't just the beginning of summer. It is a dedicated time for profound spiritual healing.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can understand how this musical sanctuary is actually engineered, we kind of have to understand the blueprint, right?
You have to know who designed it.
Exactly. Where did this concept even come from?
Well, we basically have to travel back a few centuries for that. The devotion to the Sacred Heart, it has roots in medieval mysticism, but it didn't gain global prominence until the 17th century in France.
Right, France.
And context is everything here, because in the 1600s, French theology was heavily influenced by this movement called Jansenism.
Jansenism, okay.
Yeah, and it basically painted God as incredibly distant, cold, and just rigidly judgmental. I mean, people were terrified.
Wow. So it was a very fear-based environment? Extremely. And into that exact environment comes a nun named Saint Margaret Mary Alacoque. She's looking at a town called Paris-le-Monial, and she reports experiencing a series of mystical revelations that completely shattered that cold, distant image of God.
I have to admit, when I was reading through the source notes on her specific visions, I found the imagery a bit, jarring at first.
Oh, it's very intense.
Yeah, because Jesus reportedly revealed a physical heart to her, but it was burning with fire, surrounded by a crown of thorns, and topped with a cross.
Right.
And if you just describe that to someone completely out of context, it sounds almost frightening. I mean, a disembodied heart on fire, wrapped in thorns.
It sounds like a horror movie if you don't know what it means.
Exactly. I really struggle to see how a bloody, burning organ becomes a symbol of comfort,
What's fascinating here is how the devotion deliberately uses that intense, almost painful imagery to counter the idea of a distant God.
Okay, how so?
Well, Jesus asked for a feast dedicated to this Sacred Heart to repair the indifference of the world. And that burning fire, it isn't destructive. It represents this uncontainable, consuming divine empathy.
Oh, wow. Okay, so it's a fire of love, essentially.
Exactly. And the thorns and the cross, they communicate something absolutely vital. This is a God who doesn't just watch human suffering from up in the clouds. He physically absorbs it. It perfectly marries that visceral physical imagery with abstract concepts of divine love.
That makes so much sense. So it is absolutely not just a cute, abstract Valentine heart. It's a heart that has literally been through the ringer, just like ours. And it gives people a tangible focal point. You aren't just praying to some vague concept in the sky. You are connecting with a physical heart that understands what trauma actually feels like.
Right, and humans are meaning-making creatures. We desperately need physical, tangible anchors in our environment to regulate our internal states.
Which perfectly explains why this tangible focal point has resonated so incredibly well in the global community. The sources specifically highlight the massive audience in the Philippines for this.
Oh yeah, the cultural integration there is huge.
The culture there deeply connects with these themes of refuge and emotional surrender. There is a traditional hymn sung there, No Mas Amor Que El Tuyo, which translates to No Greater Love Than Yours.
Such a beautiful piece of music, too.
It really is. But they take it way beyond just singing. They have this common practice of actually enthroning the Sacred Heart in Filipino households.
Yeah, the enthronement is a highly structured, very formal ceremony. Basically, an image or a statue of the Sacred Heart is placed in a definitive place of honor in the home.
Like front and center.
Exactly. It is essentially a familial declaration that this divine love is the true head of the household.
The very first thing I thought of when I read about that was the installation of a security system, or maybe building an emotional safe room right in the middle of the house.
That's a great analogy, actually.
Because you are planting a visual anchor right in your living room that basically says, no matter what happens outside these doors, in here we are safe.
Yes.
Is this centuries-old devotion just about honoring a historical tradition, or is it actually a sophisticated psychological tool for navigating chaos?
Well, in behavioral psychology, we would call that enthroned image an environmental cue.
Okay, an environmental cue.
Right. When a family in the Philippines looks at that statue, it triggers a cascade of psychological associations: security, mercy, belonging. It literally acts as a visual mechanism to downregulate stress and lower their cortisol levels.
Wow. Which brings us perfectly to the modern application and the music, because we are moving from the physical safe room of the Filipino household into how, at SPW Worship, constructs a sonic safe room to achieve that exact same psychological downregulation.
Yeah, they built this incredible 3-part journey for June, but they really don't treat them just as songs.
No, they don't. The first phase of this architecture, it's titled Meek and Humble, and it operates purely on de-escalation.
The audio engineering here directly serves the theology. It's brilliant. The style of this first piece is classified as sacred ambient worship.
And the pacing is what caught my eye immediately. It's set exactly at 70 beats per minute.
Yep, 70 BPM.
I actually pushed back on this when I first read the script brief. I thought, why 70? Why not a standard 60 or, 80? But 70 BPM is roughly the resting heart rate of a healthy, relaxed adult.
Exactly. And this taps into a biological phenomenon called entrainment.
Entrainment.
Yeah. Our autonomic nervous system naturally wants to synchronize with external rhythmic pulses in our environment. So when you put your headphones on and listen to a steady 70 BPM rhythm, your brain's pacemaker cells begin signaling your own heart to match that external tempo.
That is wild.
They're using the tempo to completely bypass your conscious, anxious thoughts and speak directly to your biology.
It literally forces you to calm down.
It really does.
The track opens with this warm, solemn spoken intro quoting Matthew 11.28. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened. It explicitly frames the Sacred Heart not as some abstract theological debate, but as a sanctuary from exhaustion.
Right. And then a deep, dry male lead comes in for the first verse.
The lyrics are so good. They say, we leave our burdens at the altar space. The weight of the world is left behind.
And the acoustic space of the production is so tight right there, it establishes this intimate, enclosed environment.
Like you're in a tiny chapel.
Exactly. But then the chorus hits, and the audio engineers just blow the walls out.
Yeah, you get this massive contrast. Suddenly you aren't in a small room anymore. A full, reverberant, celestial cathedral choir just explodes into the soundscape singing, Sacred Heart, so meek and humble, a refuge when the nations crumble.
Reverb is such a powerful tool in audio engineering.
Yeah.
By watching the choir in that heavy reverberation, the ear perceives a massive acoustic space, like the nave of a towering stone cathedral.
Right, it tricks the brain.
Completely. The verses are a dry, intimate male and female duet, which represents you, the individual believer, bringing your personal exhaustion to the altar. But the chorus expands the acoustic space to mirror the individual finding their place within a vast, unshakable divine reality.
It's like your personal problems are suddenly held within a chorus of thousands. It shrinks the anxiety by expanding the size of the sanctuary.
That's exactly how it feels.
And the bridge of this song does something amazing with that acoustic space. The female vocalist sings about how these sacred wounds have healed our deepest pain, but underneath her voice, the production introduces this deeply low, rhythmic drum beat.
Oh yeah, and it explicitly mimics the physical thud of a heartbeat.
Yes, mimicking the 70 BPM resting state of the listener, but also representing the physical beating of the Sacred Heart itself.
It's so layered.
And as that drum beat builds tension, the lyrics cry out, "Deep within your chest is where I want to hide." I mean, it is a raw, desperate expression of needing a refuge.
And by that point, they have successfully brought the listener out of their chaotic day and into a state of absolute physiological and spiritual rest.
But de-escalation isn't the final goal of a sanctuary, is it?
No, not at all. Rest is really just the beginning. The ultimate goal is restoration. Once the nervous system is calmed, the audio architecture has to introduce the profound reality of what actually secured that safety.
And that requires a massive shift in energy. The deep dive moves out of the peaceful invitation and confronts the intense historical event that birthed all this imagery. The music just pumps up the energy to match the monumental weight of sacrifice.
Yeah, we move into the second phase, which is called the open fountain.
Right.
And the genre shifts violently here. We go to cinematic power worship, and the tempo jumps from that resting 70 BPM all the way up to a highly active 82 BPM.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because 82 BPM is faster, but it's not like a dance tempo, you know?
No, not quite.
It is the exact heart rate of someone who is awake, highly alert, and experiencing something profound. If the first track was the piece of finding a shelter, this track is like the sudden rush of adrenaline you feel when you realize you've just been rescued from a disaster.
That's a great way to put it.
It's like you were safely pulled onto the rescue helicopter, but your heart is still pounding because you suddenly comprehend the sheer magnitude of what you were just saved from.
Yeah, the spoken intro of this track zeroes right in on the source of that rescue, focusing squarely on the event at Calvary. The narrator describes the moment the spear pierced Christ's side. It says, "From the open side of the Savior, a fountain flowed water to cleanse, blood to redeem."
Tying right back to those visceral, intense visions from 17th century France.
Exactly. And the male vocalist comes in and carries the heavy theological weight of substitutionary sacrifice.
And for anyone unfamiliar, substitutionary sacrifice is basically the idea of someone stepping in front of a fatal blow that was meant for you.
Right. And the vocalist sings, "The spear pierced through what should have been my place, but from that wound, our brokenness was healed."
Wow.
Thematically, this is the core of the redemptive narrative. It takes the pain and brokenness of the human condition and shows how it was absorbed and transformed by divine mercy.
And they mention blood and water, which is...
That's a direct use of classic Eucharistic and divine mercy imagery. To put it simply, in Catholic theology, the water represents total cleansing and purification from past mistakes, while the blood represents life-giving spiritual nourishment.
And you really cannot sing about an unstoppable river of redeeming grace with just a quiet, ambient piano.
You really can't. It wouldn't fit at all.
No. The sonic architecture completely abandons the haunting sense of the first phase. Suddenly you have this driving rhythm section, heavily textured, distorted electric guitars, and just an intense choral wall of sound.
As an audio engineer, when you add heavy distortion to an electric guitar, you are fundamentally altering the sound wave. You're packing it with complex overtones.
Overtones.
Right. And our brains interpret that dense harmonic information as raw power and intensity. It overwhelms our auditory processing in a way that feels utterly triumphant. It is quite literally high-energy grace.
I love that, high-energy grace. And the choir delivers this soaring anthem right over that wall of sound. They sing, "From your heart flows the fountain of life, a profound cure for all our earthly strife."
And then the female voice takes over in the second verse and bridge, right?
Yeah, and she declares, "Your mercy has triumphed over judgment's cry."
By the time the bridge hits, the electric guitars are at absolute peak saturation, and the lyrics are just demanding an immersive experience. "Flood my soul, fill every empty space, take me deeper in your river of grace."
You can map the psychological journey perfectly here. I mean, you started overwhelmed and exhausted. Phase 1 gave you a 70 BPM space to just lay your burdens down and breathe.
Yeah.
And then phase 2 woke you up with the 82 BPM shock of redemption.
Yeah.
It fills your brain with those complex, triumphant harmonies and this adrenaline-fueled realization that mercy has actually won.
But the journey still isn't over. No, it's not.
Because after that intense realization of being redeemed, you have to figure out how to actually integrate this back into your life. Like, what happens after you are saved? How does this love protect you moving forward when you inevitably have to take your headphones off and walk back out into the chaotic world?
And that is the specific function of the final piece in the architecture, the sanctuary of love.
The style here settles into cinematic ethereal worship, and the tempo comes back down, but not all the way to 70.
Right, it lands right at 72 BPM.
Just a slightly elevated resting state.
It is the physiological tempo of someone who is deeply at peace, but profoundly changed by what they've just experienced. And the soundscape uses cascading piano arpeggios, which our brains often associate with flowing water or cascading light.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, it creates a feeling of just ethereal safety.
The spoken intro of this track calls out a fundamental human flaw. The narrator says, "We often look for shelter in places that fall apart with the wind, but there is an unshakable sanctuary."
It is directly confronting our modern tendency to build our own fake fragile sanctuaries out of external things.
Think about your own life for a second. We all look for shelter in fragile things, you know? We try to hide behind our bank accounts, our impressive job titles, our carefully curated social media feeds.
Oh, absolutely.
But if those things can just fall apart with the wind, how does synchronizing yourself to this divine, holy heartbeat offer a fundamentally better defense mechanism against modern anxiety?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, a bank account or a job title is purely an external circumstance. It is inherently vulnerable. I mean, it can be taken away by an economic downturn or literally just a bad day at work.
Right, it's out of your control.
Exactly. But the sanctuary they are describing here is entirely internal. The verse explicitly acknowledges the reality of modern fear, saying, "When tempest winds begin to rage and blow, and shaking foundations make me lose my ground."
So the reality of the storm isn't denied. The chaos is still happening right outside.
Exactly. But the response in the chorus is a declaration of an internalized defense. "Your sacred heart is my secure domain, a brilliant light through all the dark and pain." It establishes this unshakable identity.
I love that.
And we see this fully realized in the second verse, where the female vocalist sings a very specific lyric. "Your holy heartbeat dictates how I move."
Oh man, dictates how I move. That is such a powerful line. It implies total alignment. You are no longer just cowering inside the sanctuary. You are actively operating on its rhythm in your daily life.
Yeah, the song structure takes the listener from seeking external protection to experiencing internal transformation.
Yeah.
You become synchronized with the very thing that rescued you.
And the track culminates in this epic orchestral climax. You get brass instruments, full driving drums, and just massive swelling strings. The lyrics completely shift away from just seeking shelter. They ask for total consumption.
Right.
The choir sings, "Fire that burns, never fading away, consume my life, make me just like you." It brings us all the way back to that visceral image of the burning heart from 17th century France.
Yes, exactly.
But now, it isn't scary. It is a fire the listener is willingly and joyfully walking into.
Because they finally understand it is a fire that purifies rather than destroys. And after that massive orchestral explosion, the track just beautifully fades back into a quiet, whispered prayer of final rest.
The psychological and spiritual integration is just complete.
It is a staggering piece of artistic construction.
It really is. When we look back at the whole journey today, it's amazing to see how at SPW Worship took an ancient 17th century vision from France, honored a deeply rooted Filipino cultural devotion of home enthronement, and used shifting tempos, cascading arpeggios, and heavily distorted guitars to literally construct a three-part auditory cathedral.
They managed to engineer an environment where abstract theology becomes an immediate, physical, experiential reality.
So what does this all mean? Well, whether you are a theologian studying St. Margaret Mary, an audio engineer looking at tempo dynamics, or just someone feeling completely overwhelmed by a chaotic world right now, there's a profound realization here.
Yeah.
Understanding how art and deep devotion can merge to reset our autonomic nervous system offers us a true, portable safe room. It proves that we actually have the tools to find absolute peace, even when the nations crumble.
And it leaves us with something really critical to examine in our own daily lives. We have just seen how artists and theologians can intentionally use a 70 BPM rhythm, cascading pianos, and careful audio pacing to physiologically sync your heartbeat to an ancient vision of divine love and safety.
Right.
So, what other unseen rhythms and frequencies in your daily environment are currently dictating your emotional state without you even realizing it?